What's going on, everybody? Eric Bourassa here, and I am so excited to tell you about how I've had a breakthrough in my guitar playing, and it came from my wonderful guitar teacher and mentor, Greg Howe, who I've been taking lessons with online for over a decade. I highly recommend taking lessons with Greg, especially if you're a more advanced guitar player. But if for some reason that doesn't work out and Greg's not available, you check out my website as well, and you can take me on as your guitar teacher. All right, so the thing that Greg just totally reshifted my mind with is I've been trying to do this descending 2 notes per string alternate picking pentatonic thing for forever, and it comes from Joe Satriani's Super Colossal, right? If you know that riff from the early 2000s. I didn't nail it. Wait, let me change picks. Anyway, so it bothered me that I could not play that because I've always thought, like, you know, Joe Satriani, he focuses on legato. He doesn't do a lot of picking. So if he can get away with it, I can get away with it. But in this case, he's doing alternate picked sextuplets at 91 beats per minute. And I was stuck at like between 70 and 80 beats per minute. Every now and then I could get to like 84, 85. And I brought this to Greg and I was like, hey, I got a question about alternate picking. And he was like, oh my God, this again? That's not true. He didn't. But I know like alternate picking is not his favorite thing to talk about. And over the last 10 years, I've occasionally brought up my alternate picking, been just like, hey, I feel like I'm kind of stuck with this thing. And so we were trying to pinpoint what it is that's messing me up. And so I was going down, up, down, up, down, up for all of them. And I just really was struggling with that and couldn't get anywhere. And Greg was like, Eric, I've got a 3-week rule. And I was like, what's that? And he said, if I practice something for 3 weeks and don't notice any improvement, I'm done with it. And I'm moving on and I'm going to find a different way to play it. And I was just like, because there's been so many things that I've just beat my head against the wall. And I just keep thinking, if I just do it long enough, it'll get better. And he's like, look, there are some things you're just not going to be great at. So you want to find kind of what works for you, the things that you can regularly, consistently make progress on, and then lean into those, you know, work on your weaknesses a little bit, but really lean into the things that you do well. And when you think about the greatest guitar players in history, when you think about aspiring to be like the greats, you know, like a Jimi Hendrix or an Eddie Van Halen or a Jeff Beck, none of those guys are great at everything. And then even like Greg Howe, who seemingly is great at everything, he says he's not that great at alternate picking, but he really is. He doesn't do a lot of sweep picking. He's like, you know, sweep picking just doesn't come naturally to me. And so instead of him going that kind of thing, he'll go, you know, he'll do something more like that, where it's a combination of downstrokes, legato, and middle finger hybrid picking. And so he goes, well, Eric, if you just play the first 3 notes of that pattern that you're stuck on, how is that? And I went down, up, down, down, up, down. Okay, so that's okay. And then I was like, well, once I get to the 3rd string and then start it over, it feels like it kind of falls apart. And he goes, well, what if you start with an upstroke? And I go, okay. And I was like, just the first 3 notes feel so much easier. And now I'm a lefty. So I actually pick with my weaker hand. And so my picking hand has always been kind of the challenge for me, except when it comes to hybrid picking. Because of my classical guitar degree, I spent 4 straight years doing finger picking. And so hybrid picking comes pretty easily to me now. But alternate picking still never has. And he goes, well, why don't you start with an upstroke? So I started. Now check this out. If I start with a down. Yeah, now if I start with an up. You can hear that it's actually less effort for me to do it, and it's cleaner. It just sounds more relaxed. So this thing I could not do before, except at moderate speeds, even though it's not exactly where I want it to be yet, I'm noticing that it feels good, and I'm noticing little incremental gains that I was not noticing before. So I got to spend a lot more time with this, but already, just starting with the upstroke made all the difference in the world. And so that is how Greg Howe changed my 2-note per string picking instantly. Anyway, if you want my cheat sheet for how to practice this, check out the link in the description below. That'll have my tips for how I think it's most effective to practice this, breaking it up into chunks, how long to practice it, kind of what my practice regimen is for tackling this. So you can check that in the link in the description below. Let me know what is something that you were doing it a certain way for forever, and then all of a sudden you tried it a slightly different way. You kind of flipped it, and then all of a sudden it was easy. This is also a good reminder, I think, for all of us that nothing is set in stone when it comes to playing guitar and making music. It's all about finding what works for you. So if you dig this, like and subscribe, or if you don't like it because you're like, hey, I can tell that you're wearing a hat and you're bald underneath and you're just covering up your baldness, dislike, that's cool. That's cool too. I'm open to that conversation. Or if you just want to leave a hot ones comment below, that is fine too. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next times.